You will die. It may not be today, it may not be this year, but it will happen. A day is coming when you will take your last breath, and the world, with all its noise, drama, and wonder, will continue on without you. This is not a threat. It is not a morbid fantasy. It is the single most defining, inescapable, and unifying fact of your existence. And it is the best news you have ever heard. For most of our lives, we are sleepwalkers. We live in a state of dull, comfortable denial, navigating our days as if they are infinite. We scroll through endless feeds. We put our dreams on a shelf marked someday, and we allow trivial anxieties to dictate our actions. We are the 20-somethings who feel we have all the time in the world. The 30-somethings who believe our real life hasn't started yet. And the 40-somethings who are too afraid to make the big change. We are terrified of making the wrong decision, so we make no decision at all. We are afraid of public speaking, of asking for a raise, of starting the business, of telling someone we love them. We are afraid of what they will think, and so we wait. We procrastinate. We waste time. What if there was a tool, an ancient psychological operating system that could instantly shatter this illusion? A single thought, so powerful it could in one moment vaporize your petty fears, clarify your deepest priorities, and force you to live with urgent, profound purpose? This tool exists. It is the greatest productivity hack, clarity filter, and courage booster ever invented. It is the simple, two-word Roman philosophy: Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Part 1. The sickness of denial. The modern world is a conspiracy against this realization. We are experts at insulating ourselves from the reality of our own fragility. We use anti-aging creams. We celebrate youth above all else, and we hide our sick and elderly away in sterile white buildings far from public view. Death in our culture is not a natural process. It is a medical failure, a taboo subject whispered about in hushed tones. This denial is the source of our deepest anxieties. Because we refuse to confront the one big, inescapable fact, we become consumed by thousands of small, trivial ones. We worry about an awkward comment we made at a party 3 years ago. We obsess over a stranger's negative comment on our social media post. We stay in jobs we hate because we fear the uncertainty of change. We delay the important work, the book, the art, the difficult conversation, in favor of the urgent work, like clearing our inbox. We are sleepwalking toward the grave, convinced we are immortal. The ancient Romans, for all their faults, were not so deluded. They understood this sickness and prescribed a cure. On the tombstones lining the Appian Way, the road leading out of Rome, you would find inscriptions carved for all to see. They were not just names and dates, they were messages to the living. A common refrain found on the graves of soldiers, senators, and citizens read, "Fui quod es, eris quod sum." I was what you are. You will be what I am. Imagine walking to work past that every day. It wasn't meant to be depressing. It was a civic reminder, a public service announcement from the dead to the living. Wake up. Stop wasting this. You are on the clock. Part 2. The Emperor's Prescription. The most powerful practitioners of Memento Mori were the Stoics. They were not morbid academics. They were high performers living in the thick of it. And none was more powerful than Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome. From his tent on the battlefield, he wrote in his private journal, a book we now know as Meditations, not as an emperor, but as a man struggling to be better. His most potent tool, which he returned to again and again, was the contemplation of his own end. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not a dark thought. It is a filter. When you hold this filter up to your life, what burns away? The fear of asking for that promotion, the hesitation to start your own company, the petty argument you're having with your partner, the desire to scroll on your phone instead of playing with your child. All of it turns to ash. If you could leave life right now, would you be spending this hour in this way? Would you be consumed by this specific anxiety? Would you leave that important thing unsaid? The answer, almost always, is no. This thought doesn't make you reckless. It makes you focused. It forces you to distinguish between what is trivial and what is vital. It is the ultimate antidote to procrastination. You don't have time for nonsense. You don't have time for fear. You only have time for what truly matters. Part 3. Visualizing your finite life. The Stoics were practical. They didn't just know this, they practiced it. In Bhutan, a country that famously measures its gross national happiness, it's common for monks and lay people alike to meditate on death. In some traditions, monks are encouraged to meditate in charnel grounds or to look upon a human skull every single day. Why? To normalize it, to desensitize themselves to the idea of death so they can overcome the fear of it. When you look at a skull every day, it ceases to be a horrifying symbol of the unknown. It becomes a simple, polished reminder of your own physical reality. It becomes a tool. It whispers, "Be here now. This is all there is." For those of us without a skull on our desk, there is an even more visceral, modern tool. In 2014, the writer Tim Urban of Wait But Why published an article called "Your Life in Weeks." He created what he called a life calendar, a simple grid of boxes, one box for every week of a 90-year life. Total, 4,680 boxes. This is your entire life on one piece of paper. If you are 25 years old, you have already used 1,300 of those boxes. If you are 35 years old, you have used 1,820 of them. If you are 45, you are at 2,340. You are halfway done. When you see your life visualized this way, the abstract concept of time becomes terrifyingly concrete. You see the weeks you spent in that dead-end job. You see the years you spent in that bad relationship. You see the vast block of your past, already filled in, gone forever. And then you see the remaining boxes. They are not infinite. They are a small, precious, and dwindling resource. This visual is perhaps the most powerful memento mori for the modern 20 to 40-year-old. It is a quantitative, undeniable slap in the face. It forces you to ask, how will I spend my remaining boxes? Will you spend them in fear, in procrastination, or will you finally decide to live? Part 4. The Modern Disciple, Steve Jobs. If you want proof that this ancient philosophy is not just a historical curiosity, look no further than the man who built the most valuable company in the world. In 2005, Steve Jobs gave one of the most famous commencement speeches in history at Stanford University. He had, at that point, already survived his first bout with pancreatic cancer. He knew, with a certainty that most of us are lucky enough to ignore, that his time was limited. He told the graduates, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important." This is the exact same filter Marcus Aurelius used. Jobs was facing the ultimate fear of a big decision. He was facing his own mortality, and in that, he found it wasn't a curse. It was a clarifying agent. It gave him courage. He continued, "Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart." This is the answer for our target audience. You are afraid to make the big decision. You are afraid to quit the job, move to the new city, start the family, or launch the project. You are already naked. You have nothing to lose because you will lose it all anyway. The clock is ticking. The only real failure is not trying. The only real tragedy is arriving at your last day filled with the bitter regret of the chances you never took. This is the great paradox of Memento Mori. A life lived in denial of death is a life lived in fear. It is small, anxious, and half-lived. A life lived in acceptance of death is a life of purpose, courage, and profound gratitude. When you truly accept that your time is finite, several magical things happen. 1. Your priorities become crystal clear. The trivial anxieties burn away. You no longer have the patience for pettiness, for gossip, for work that doesn't matter. You have a mission, and your time is running out. 2. You become brave. What are you afraid of? Embarrassment? Rejection? Failure? As Steve Jobs said, these things just fall away. What is a moment of embarrassment compared to an entire life of regret? You become willing to take the risks necessary to live a life aligned with your values. 3. You stop procrastinating. The someday on your to-do list becomes today. The life calendar has shown you that your todays are numbered. The urgency is real. You finally start the business, write the book, and make the phone call. 4. You feel radical gratitude. Every moment becomes a gift. You stop getting through the day and you start living it. The simple act of having coffee, of talking to a friend, of feeling the sun on your face. These are not mundane routines. They are miracles. They are moments you have been given, moments that will not last forever. What would you do if you had 6 months to live? You would quit the job you hate. You would tell the people you love exactly how you feel about them. You would stop worrying about what others think. You would travel. You would create. You would live more in those 6 months than you have in the last 10 years. Now, what if I told you that is exactly what the Stoics did every single morning? They didn't just contemplate death once. They woke up and used it as their filter for the day ahead. You could leave life right now. This isn't a practice for the end of your life. It is a practice for the beginning of it. It is the alarm clock that finally wakes you from your sleepwalking. You do not have to wait for a terminal diagnosis to receive this gift of clarity. You can give it to yourself right now. Look at your own life calendar. See the boxes, finite and precious. Listen to the emperor. Let your mortality determine what you do and say and think. Hear the echo from the Roman tomb. I was what you are. You will be what I am. You will die. It is the best news you have ever heard because it is the only news that can finally, truly teach you how to live.